going to move on to, I think, Lan Caihe. This is an interesting interpretation of him, to be perfectly honest, to him or her. So this interpretation has him riding when you're looking at the picture, has him or her riding a tortoise, which is a very common theme in the novels. But you can kind of specifically tell that it is a male form in this artist's rendition. But to know about Lan Caihe, this is it's the least well known of the Eight Immortals. Everything is very half-assed in terms of documentation on it, because it's the most mysterious. He or she is known as the most insane, or known as the most speculative or vague of the Eight Immortals. It's gender unknown. It's an immortal who can take the form of an effeminate male or a manly female, or completely just not have anything, more androgynous. So it's the most androgynous of the immortals, generally portrayed as a young effeminate boy carrying a flower basket or a flute. But the conduct of this immortal is completely weird and nonsensical. So it's kind of like, if you were going to reference a current novel with it, I would say it's most similar to Martial, what is that one called? Martial God Ashura, when the one guy is like a hidden expert who can cause flames, but he had something in his mind affected that makes him terrified and just acts crazy and does crazy stuff. Kind of similar to that, but also more just like the people who you just don't understand at all. One of the weird examples is that you always see the character in shorts and shirts in winter, but jackets and pants in summer. Always wearing one foot with a shoe and one foot without a shoe. You can't exactly see that in this picture. I don't really see too many of the references to my research on the character in this picture, but I think it's because it is so vague. You can kind of make up what you want to represent the character. There's not too many legends surrounding him or her, and he or she is rarely seen outside of groups in terms of like any of the tales. The tales of him or her are actually uniform in terms of descriptions, though, which is kind of interesting, because as the most vague, you'd think that there'd be more open to interpretation, but all the descriptions are fairly coincide with each other pretty peculiarly. Would only work as needed and eat as needed or drink as needed. Didn't care for earthly wealth. So the character would be seen like making a lot of money playing songs, but would only use that money to buy enough to fill their belly and to buy a few bottles of wine, and then the rest it would just either throw around, leave somewhere, or drag around town by a string, which is kind of cool. Practice the Zhuangzi style of living, which is to be at peace with oneself without any regard for earthly concerns. So similar to an ascetic, but not as closed off from other people, like more like a sociable ascetic. A cool quote in terms of this character, in that it's weird for me to say it because it's like he, she, it, however I want to describe the character or the legend. But one of the quotes is, "Life and death are great affairs, and yet they are no change to him. Though heaven and earth flop over and fall down, it is no loss to him. He sees clearly into what has no falsehood and does not shift with things. He takes it as fate that things should change, and he holds fast to the source." So it's kind of just the quote of "at peace with oneself without any regard for earthly concerns." It's just life will happen, and you're just there to experience it. Whether or not it's good or bad doesn't really pertain to him. But he also has songs, he or she also has songs that denounce life as fleeting. There's one song that was listed in the article that I was reading in particular that's similar to the saying of, I'm not getting this completely right, but in a lot of the novels that you read, you have the whole saying of searching for Tao in the morning, finding it in the evening, and happily dying at night. The song is, "Ye men of the world, now are ye born, and soon ye die. Yesterday ye were twice 8, and your valor puffed from your breast. Today ye are 70 years old, looking feebly and without strength. Ye are like flowers of the spring day, which blossom in the morning, but fade in the evening." Basically, the feebleness of life, the fact that life is fleeting, and nothing you do yesterday pertains to today, in terms of, you're going to be 16 today, and tomorrow it'll seem like it's tomorrow where you're 70 and already dying, because life is just like that. So kind of nihilistic, but less negative in its nihilism, more of just a complete peace with life in general. The nods to Xianxia are that it's an effeminate characters that are often males, or slight nods to Caihe. Mischief-making characters that defy reasoning or common sense are kind of inspired by him, and the use of shape-shifting and changing the character's appearance to blend in could also be seen as a reference to Caihe. Because most traits of this character are philosophical in nature, it's hard to know whether any references are actually to this character or instead are just to the philosophical nature that he or she implements in the tales that he or she are in. So it's hard to actually make direct comparisons to where this character has influenced modern day Xianxia, but you can kind of look at who it is as a character and see themes from it and from the tales in modern day Xianxia.